I think you're muted, sir. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's our 40-day, 31st day of our 40-day program. And it's still the Equip Boot Camp. And we will be examining today the 38th parable that Jesus spoke. And today also we're looking at a parable that is fairly popular, you know, and that parable is the parable of the persistent widow. The parable of the persistent widow is what we're considering this evening. It's a very loaded parable, very interesting as well. A lot to benefit from this parable. Um, and this is something that is capable, that has what it takes to change our lives and to change, the quality of the outcomes that we experience. There is an instrument here that if we will truly understand how to use it, um, we will be able to get more of what we actually desire. And it would be one pleasant way of putting it into our hands. So it's about understanding the persistent faith as the key to securing justice. That's like a very direct, way of capturing it. But there are so many aspects to this parable, and we will surely explore them, this evening. So let's listen to the video representation of that parable, after which, as our custom has been, we will read the parable itself.
Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, in a certain town, there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet, because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones, who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?
All right, that's the parable for you, rendered in video. Let's look at um, what we can learn. I mean, let's read the parable in Luke 18, beginning from verse 1. Then he spoke a parable to them, that men always ought to pray and not lose heart. That men always ought to pray and not lose heart, saying, there was in a certain city a judge who did not fear God nor regard man. Now there was a widow in that city, and she came to him saying, get justice for me from my adversary. And he would not for a while. But afterward, he said within himself, though I do not fear God nor regard man, Yet, because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Then the Lord said, hear what the unjust judge said. And shall God not avenge his own elect, who cry out day and night to him, though he bears long with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? That's the parable. For us, I hope you took note of certain elements there. And, what we need to, to note is this parable is just like the parable of the friend at midnight. The friend who had a friend that came in late at night, and that friend, he felt it was appropriate to put something before him to feed him, but he didn't have anything in the house. And so he went to another friend to, lend some loaves of bread. And that friend refused them at first, but eventually, we're told that because of his persistence, the friend will give him whatever it is that he requires. So the point here too is along the same line. It's just that the context is different. The context is different. The illustrations, the elements that Jesus used to illustrate here are quite different from what he used in the parable of the friend at midnight. And the fact that they are different, as we have often said, is enough for us to pay attention to, because there is, of course, something incremental to learn, all right, in this new context. Remember, we emphasize the focus of the parable of the friend at midnight to be the power of asking and shameless audacity. That reminds me of the terminology that Dari used yesterday, prodigal audacity, which was, how he described the action of the prodigal son when we discussed it yesterday. Okay, so let's look at what are the things we want to note. Again, I just recalled the things that we noted when we discussed the parable of the friend at midnight, but we'll then look at what are the things we want to discuss or to guide our discussion today. We're going to look at the basis. Men ought always, or always ought to pray. And then there are certain characters, and we'll take note of those characters: the widow, the adversary, and the judge. What's the challenge? What's the issue at hand? We'll look at that. The oppression of the widow. How did the widow try to, what was the widow's need? All right, she was seeking redress, and she took a particular course of action. What was the nature of the obstacle? All right, she was trying to resolve a problem, but then she confronted an obstacle, a corrupt and proud judge. How did she overcome the obstacle? Persistence. How do you power persistence? What powers persistence? Faith. And then no plan B is something worth mentioning about what persistent faith constitutes. And will he find faith on the earth? Will he find faith on the earth. That's a statement that Jesus closed with, and we look at how important that statement is. Now, let's go on and examine the issues here. All right. Jesus started by making this statement. We're told he told a parable to the effect that men always ought to pray and not faint. What does that mean? It means that the reason that he spoke this parable, what essentially he was trying to convey, the principle of life that he was, intended to open their heart to and their eyes to, is that it's important to pray, but not just to pray always until you get what you want. There are things to, note here. Basically, the significance of prayer and the purpose for doing so is saying, look, if you understand the place of prayer in life, the fact that through prayer you can get what you want, whatever God has promised, whatever you can justify. It said it's worth staying in the place of prayer, that is continuing to activate that instrument called prayer, not allowing yourself to be discouraged until you get what you want. He's saying that when you stay in the place of prayer, believing that that instrument is potent, that you are not likely, you will not return empty-handed. He's saying that if you have been told that prayer is powerful, it can get you what you want, you better believe it, because if you stay there long enough, ultimately it will prove itself to be right. He's saying if you really want something, then there's a way to get it. And this statement is not a command. It didn't command it. It's not one of the commandments. It's a counsel. It's a word of advice. If only you knew what was good for you, you would not only pray, but you would make it. You will pray continuously until you get what you want. Now, the idea is not to promote, religion in the sense that, just don't pray for the sake of prayer. Okay? And I hear a lot of people who try to suggest that people who pray, people should not pray asking for something all the time. Some people would even tell you that that's like being a child. It's a child that is always saying, give me, give me, give me. The truth from this statement that Jesus made is that the essence of prayer is for you to collect something from God. Let no one confuse anybody about that. The essence of prayer is for you to collect what you desire from God. God doesn't need to collect anything from any of us. He has everything that he needs. Jesus said, when they complained about, people crying out, Hosanna in the highest and all of that, he said, if the people do not praise him, the stones will rise up before their very eyes and they will praise him. That is, we are never going to be the one to hold God to ransom. God doesn't need anything from us. When we want to, humble ourselves or make ourselves good, we will talk about, God needing, our praises and all of that. God doesn't need our praise. It is God has enough people, enough angels be in his presence, just praising him from day and night. Okay? It's a privilege for us to join them. It's not as though we have really anything, to offer him. If, yes, we line up with his principles, he gets excited. If we don't, it's to our own loss. But look, why Jesus said the reason, the purpose why he was speaking this is that they will stay continually praying and not lose heart. To lose heart is like to lose hope. It's like to be discouraged. It's like to turn back, and just acknowledge that maybe God will not give me this thing, or maybe the person I'm asking for this thing will not give me this thing, which means that prayer has a purpose. It means that you want to ask for something. And if you are in a leadership relationship, the truth is that the flow of blessing, the flow of impact is from the leader to the followers, not the other way around. Not the other way around. It's very unlikely that followers will ever hold a leader who is what is sought to ransom. Very unlikely. Very unlikely. Because in that relationship, those who are to benefit, they are the people following. They are not, he's not the leader. He's not the leader. So if you want to get what you want from a leader, this is part of the key. You have to be persistent. You have to do it to the point where the leader will give you, not because he wants to give you, but because of his own, selfish nature, which is the kind of thing that the man tried to do here. He didn't give her what she wanted necessarily because, she qualified for it or because he wanted to. He did it out of self-preservation. Said, if I don't give her this thing, this woman will weary me. Oh, so wicked people don't like to be troubled or wearied. That's a weakness that this parable reveals. Said the wicked don't like you to weary them. They will bulk under the weight of your persistent pressure. Isn't that a powerful insight? Isn't that a powerful insight? So he's not even saying that, he's not saying that, he says this confronted a wicked judge, had no regard for God, no regard for man. Doesn't that sound like some people that we know? Doesn't that sound like, I mean, some forces that we contend with? But there are things to do to get us off the hook. There is a sure way to get us off the hook. There's a sure way to get what you want. The problem is, are you willing to follow that way? Are you willing to follow that way? So this is wise counsel for us to treat prayer as a must. And prayer for this purpose, please, is the same thing as asking. Asking. If any of you, is available when I have a 5-day challenge that is, captioned Ask to Win Challenge. Ask to Win Challenge. And what I basically focus on over the 5 days is the power of asking and how to use it effectively. All right? How to use it effectively. So if you're interested in it, whenever it comes up, maybe you'll get some communication from my end. And asking is your most powerful weapon for getting what you want. When you look at this situation, all this woman had was what? Her ability to ask. All that she invoked to solve her problem was to ask. That's all that she did. She didn't go looking for anybody. She didn't petition anyone. She went to the right person. The judge says, well, do your job on my behalf. That's all that she did. And it was enough to get her what she wanted. That one gesture, that one thing that she did sorted out that problem, put her over the obstacle. That one thing. So let's take note of that. Let's be aware of that. That asking and never giving up hope is powerful. And it will secure justice for you in any situation. In any situation. Let nothing stop you from asking when you know what you can get. When you know you can get it, let nothing stop you from asking. Anything that stops you from asking, even if it is yourself, has stopped you from getting your benefit. You will see sometime during the course of this session what really the problem is for most of us, and that most of what we point to is not really the problem. So keep asking until you get. And it's just a mystery. It's a mystery. How will that work? It's a mystery. All right? Just do it. That's how it works. That's how life works. All the parties that Jesus used as an illustration, they exist in life. There are widows in life. There are adversaries in life. We have seen the adversaries. We've seen some of them. We saw them in the parable of the tares. The man was busy doing his own business. But while men slept, all right, the adversary came in. We have said that they are stakeholders as well. We can't wish them away. They will come, much as we don't want them to. But if we know what is good for us, we will learn through classes like this, through insights like this, how to checkmate them. Then in the parable of the tares, we saw that one way to checkmate them is through knowledge. Here, we're seeing that another way to checkmate them is by asking. Is by asking. All right? Asking from the right source. Asking the right people to checkmate them. All right? We have seen a judge. And so for there to be a judge, obviously there is a system in place. There's a legal system in place. The judge is one of the operators of the legal system that's in place. So you have a widow here, all right, who is constrained, who is disadvantaged, who looks helpless because she's now alone. The husband is not available. Maybe she has children, but then what can the children do? She's relatively weak as a widow, or at least thought to be weak. Will she play that weakness card? Well, we will soon discover. Then you have the adversary. The adversary is an oppressor. He's wicked. He's strong. He has the contacts. They want to have their way by all means. They want to dispossess people of what is truly theirs. They are boastful as well. All right? Maybe they have friends in high places. And then you have a judge who represents an institution, who represents a system, who is the operator of a system, who is meant to be the last resort of the common man, or indeed of even the rich, when they contend with opposition, when in order for them to secure, their rights and privileges is backed by the power of the state. They are there to neutralize oppression, to uphold justice and fairness. And the highest institution that you could possibly have. Why? Because fairness is the #1 priority of God. Fairness. Fairness. To treat everybody the same. To have a level playing field for all. So those are the characters that we have, so that we have a good understanding of the context, in which we are discussing. What is the challenge? Why did the widow all right, have to, why is she the one that we're focusing? We're told that the widow went to a judge and cried to the judge, saying, save me, get me justice from my adversaries. You would only say that if your adversaries, if you have people who are oppressing you, if you have people who are contending with what rightfully belongs to you, if you have people who are standing in your way in some regard or the other and preventing you from enjoying certain kinds of benefits. And so that is the challenge that this woman faced, and she was trying to resolve that. So, she was oppressed, as it were, and she was relying on the system, the legal system, to help her out. All right? She didn't have the power to deal with her adversary, because if she did, she probably would have done the needful. Okay? But she did not have the power. And she looked around. Okay, the system is there. The operators of the system are there. All I should do is to go to them and take advantage of that provision to deal with my situation. She was in crucial need for help. She was desperate because she was alone. She's a widow. And there's a reason why Jesus spoke about not just an ordinary woman, about a widow. In a certain city, a widow. All right? There's a reason why you cannot understand the real message here without taking note of that widow. That tells us that whenever you imagine that you are alone, you are truly not alone. All right? And people can attempt to take advantage of you when you are vulnerable, when you are in a place of weakness. It's the same thing they did in the case of the parable of the tares. While men slept, when men are sleeping, it's a vulnerable state. The reason that is a vulnerable state is that, they are relaxed. They have let down their guards. All right, is a time that any wicked person or any adversary can rush in to try and take advantage of them in that state. So this woman, being a widow, not having somebody else, because the Bible says, that two are better than one. But now she's alone. She's back to one. She's vulnerable. She's weak. Who is going to help her? And that's when the adversary shows up. And it happens even in our cultural setting, and it's particularly, preponderant in the case of certain cultures where, the husband dies and they want to take away, the relations want to take away everything and don't care whether anything is left for the woman, yet they assert that they have, rights, when as far as the law of the land is concerned, they have no such rights. So who does the woman run to in cases like that? But the woman won't allow herself to be cheated. She knew she had a silver bullet. She had a silver bullet. This woman was very knowledgeable. You have to praise her for that. This woman was knowledgeable. She had the right mindset. She refused to accept that she's vulnerable. She refused to accept that any adversary can take advantage of her vulnerable state, and she knew precisely what she ought to do. She knew what to do. Why? Because she did just one thing, and she stayed with that one thing until it produced the result that she desired. That's evidence that she knew what she needed to do. She was vulnerable, but she was not ignorant. She was vulnerable, but she was not stupid. She was vulnerable, but she was wise. She was vulnerable and knowledgeable. She knew precisely what she needed to do, and she did it. That's wisdom. Knowing what to do and doing it. And it produced result for her. It produced the result that she desired. It didn't produce just any result. It produced the result that she desired. She moved the judge to checkmate her oppressors and to secure what was hers in her hands. She refused to accept being oppressed. All right? And she explored opportunities to get help. So, how did she seek redress? What was her course of action? She turned to the legal system. There was a system in place, put in place to help people like her when they are contending with injustice. Take notice that she sought redress from the right source. That's very important. If she had gone anywhere else, if she had gone to just any other person, she could pray forever. She would never get, she couldn't possibly be guaranteed that the person she's asking can do anything. So it's important. You must take that away from this parable. She went to the right source, turned to the legal system. This was not just supposed to be any private issue. She wasn't going to go to somebody that, well, is either give and take. She went to a system. She didn't go to a person. She went to a system. The reason she went to that man was not because of who the man, his personality, or whether or not the man had a relationship with her. That was not under question, unlike the other case. This was because of who the man represented, who the man was representing. She went to this man because that man had been appointed by the system as its agent. She went to the judge as an agent of the legal system. She didn't go to the judge in his private capacity. The judge is helpless. The judge can be dependent upon in his private capacity. But the judge is under obligation, or at least so she thought, in his official capacity. She could make demands from the judge in his official capacity because the judge is subject to the system. The judge has a rule book that the system has put in place, and he needs to abide by it. So one of the things that you must bear in mind in order to ask is, are you asking from the right source? Is that source empowered to give you what you want? Is that source under obligation to respect your demand? Can you justify your request within the context of the rules of the system? Because these are some of the things you must observe. Otherwise, your prayer, if it's a prayer as to asking God, or your asking, if it is men, will not be potent. Will not be potent. So she went to the right source. She went to the judge. As it were, she went really to the system, not to the judge in his personal capacity. So she chose the right course. She didn't take laws into her hands. She played by the rules. Very, very important. Yes, you are being oppressed. Yes, somebody is contending with you for what belongs to you. Yes, you won't open your eyes and be cheated. But whatever you do, play by the rules. You are stronger when you play by the rules. Two wrongs will never make a right. The oppressor is doing something wrong. You must not do something wrong. The agent representing the system is doing something wrong. You must not do something wrong. You must stay on the path of integrity, on the path of righteousness. Play by the rules. He said every athlete who wants to win a race, who is striving for mastery, what is one of the conditions? He has to play by the rules. He has to play by the rules, otherwise he can't win. He will be disqualified at some point. But there is also, one powerful aspect of playing by the rules. The righteous are bold as a lion. When you play by the rules, you are playing righteously. When you play righteously, there is a boldness that comes up in you, that I am doing the right thing, I'm going to stay on it, and it's a source of power. It's a source of power. Now, there's something to be recognized about the fact that she went to the system, she didn't go to the person of the judge. Systems are more protective than persons. Systems are not emotional. It's the people that are put to run the system that are emotional. And therefore, a system by itself cannot be corrupt. It's the people who are corrupt that impose their corruption on the system. So, and the system will outlive everyone. The system will outlive everyone. People are going to die. People are going to leave a system, but the system will remain. The system will remain. The system is powerful, and the system is more powerful than the people, because the people are mere agents. They are mere agents. A servant can be stronger than the master. All right? An agent cannot be stronger than the one from whom he or she draws legitimacy, authority, and power. Why? Because the system can withdraw it at any time. The judge is only powerful because it has been given to him by the system. The judge can be displaced. It can be removed tomorrow. So when you turn and you are seeking for something, seek from the system. And don't place undue emphasis on the person, even if the person is representing the system. Because as you see in the case of this judge, the people can be corrupt. So believe in the system, perhaps more than you believe in the people. Because just in case the people are corrupt, don't write off a system because of the corruption of the agents. That's a big lesson for every one of us in this country, in every other country. Don't write off the system. You can write off the people. You can complain about the people. Yes, the people can be corrupt. They are the ones trying to corrupt the system. The system by itself is not emotional, has no ability to corrupt itself. And corrupt people, in this case, leadership, can put in place a system that is never intended to work. All right? And God save us from corrupt leaders. So what's the obstacle? Now, this woman had a challenge. I mean, tough enough. Somebody dragging her benefits with her. But imagine, on top of that, in the pursuit of, her rights of justice, she meets an obstacle, another challenge, a challenge within a challenge. Suddenly, she has to grapple with a judge who has no regard for God, who does not respect man. Any man is a law unto himself. He does only what he likes. He's corrupted, the way that the system is supposed to run. Imagine the double, odds that are stacked against this woman. Because she couldn't handle her oppressors, she ran to where she thought she would get help. On getting there, look at what she's meeting. One person standing as an obstacle. Not because the person is supporting the oppressors. The person won't even hear her case. The person is just who he is. He's an unreliable agent. He's a stumbling block. And she has to deal with that. Obstacles have no respect for your circumstance. Obstacles, you don't say, but she's a widow. Why? Widows will have challenges like everybody else. Everyone will have in their sphere we contend with their own challenge. That's life. And it's for a purpose. Because one of the things with challenges is so that you can learn, you can grow, and you can be promoted as well. So she had that obstacle. The system is good, the operators are corrupt, but she refuses to lose hope in the system or lose faith in the system. She noted the pride and the corrupt nature of the judge. Thankfully, she quickly saw that, wow, so I have to deal with this guy again. But she never gives up. She puts pressure on the person to do his job. So you have to do your job. I'm not asking you for a favor. I'm simply asking you, do your job. That's all I'm asking. And as long as that's all I'm asking, I'm not going to stop doing it. Because when you decided to become a judge, you made a vow. You committed that you would do it, and you would do it well. So fulfill your obligation. And you are doing me no favor from what I'm asking you. That's what you are there to do. So please do it. I'm not asking for a favor. All right? So again, you have to be careful. When you ask for certain things, don't treat it as if you're asking the person to do you a favor. When you're asking for a favor, you know you're asking for a favor. But in this case, there is no favor. You need you to just do your job. That should be a source of, boldness and courage for you. In the earlier case, the parable of the friend at midnight, it was a favor. He wanted a favor. So relationship mattered. All right? He went to his friend. He didn't go to a judge. In this case, he was not asking for a favor. He was betting on the system. Two different things. So why? But the same persistence works. Why is it important? Why did Jesus use the illustration? That yes, there can be differences in the, circumstances, but recognize it's important to know who you are going to. That guy needed something. He couldn't bet on any system to get him bread for his friend. He had to go looking for somebody with whom he had a relationship that would understand his plight. This one was not about relationship. The adversaries, it's a different kettle of fish. This one was a direct opposition. This one was somebody contending. In the first one, nobody was contending for anything. Here, somebody is contending for what rightfully belongs to you and your children. And you say no. So who do you go to? It has to be different. You don't go to a friend in this instance because your friend is powerless. Which friend will give you justice? Even if your friend was a judge, you don't go to your friend who is a judge because of he is your friend. You go to a judge because he's a judge. It may happen that that judge is now your friend. They are two different things. Why? Because what you are betting on in this case of the widow is the institution, is the system, is not the person. In the other case, it has nothing to do with the system. The system won't provide you bread for your friend. You go to a relationship. These are, you see, these are elements that when we discuss some of these parables, we don't take notice of. But they make all the difference because they empower us with how the skill, these are the things that make us skillful in the use of it. There are things not to ask from your brother, from your anybody, that you go to the system. And there are things that is enough to ask people that you have a relationship with. And I will say this, therefore, to some people who come and say, you know, in the case of office politics, I'm being oppressed at work. They are promoting other people. I'm not being promoted. Well, part of what you do is also that you take on the system directly by making a demand of the system, being ready to provide your case, to justify that you are not asking the system to do you a favor, you are asking the system to live up to his commitment. And so the management may be corrupt, like the judge, such that they are promoting people, they are doing their own thing, they are deciding whether or not they're going to promote anybody, they are not following the rules. And you know the rules, and you know you meet the conditions, and somebody still says you are not getting promoted. Part of the problem that you've been having is that you have not made a demand on the institution. You have been too naive or too afraid to confront the institution to ask. Imagine if this woman was afraid of the judge. This woman looked away from the judge. She didn't care who the judge was. She didn't care how corrupt the judge was. She kept on making a demand. The strength, what powered her boldness and courage, her persistence, was her faith in the system, not in the judge. And if you have faith, if those people have faith in the system, they will get their promotion. Their case will be revisited. If it is not revisited because they are justified to get the promotion, it will be revisited because the system, the people running the system, they don't want to be wearied. So powerful people fear being wearied. I mean, that you have to wrap your mind around it. Powerful people are not so powerful. They have their own weaknesses. One of their weaknesses is this. This judge, the only thing this judge feared, he said, this woman will continue to trouble me if I don't give her what she wants. So she will eventually weary me. I don't want to be wearied. A powerful judge is afraid of somebody coming every time and just making a statement. The woman is not threatening you. The woman is only saying, do your job. Do your job. Do your job. And you are afraid. You are uncomfortable to the point where you say, let me just give her what she wants so I can have my peace. Oh, so wicked people who are troubling everybody else, they are afraid of being troubled. That is one thing. Please take it away tonight. Wicked people are not all powerful. They are not all powerful. Something as little as discomfort, they will throw their hand, everything. They will remove their hand and let you have your way and let you go. And if you think very well about it, isn't that what happened between, Moses and Pharaoh? Isn't that what happened? Because Pharaoh went to the man. God kept saying, go back 10 times. Was the 10th time that he said, look, okay, you people, just pack your things, please. Just let me be. Let me be. This trouble is too much. This is what Jesus is showing us. This is what Jesus is showing us. Judges are not stronger than the system. And the system will ultimately win for you. The system will ultimately respond to you, no matter how corrupt it is, or no matter how corrupt the people are. And some people have discovered that in this day and age. Because when you refuse to accept some things, there are people, the same places where some of you or some of us, and I don't do that, by the way, I've resorted to praying bribes so that we just get what we want. There are people who have said, no, I would never. And they will still get what they want. It may take longer time, but they stay on the path of righteousness and make sure that the system gives them what they want. And the system gives them what they want. The same system that you could not break, you could not persevere when you are dealing with, that you lost faith in, that same system gave them what they want. Now, notice that it's not about how nice, how easy, how orderly, the system went or is. It has nothing to do with the issue. The focus is, what do you want from the system? How you get it, how the system responds, nobody cares. Stop expecting that when you want to get something, things have to be done in a particular order, and stuff like that. No, your own is that from this system, I'm going to collect this thing. Is my entitlement, except you are saying that I'm not entitled. You have to keep faith in the system, not in the judge. Persist in your demand. Don't mind the judge's pride and corruption. Know that there is something that will subdue that wicked aspect of the judge. And that's your persistence. That corruption cannot survive in the face of persistent faith. Corruption cannot hold its own in the face of persistent faith. When persistent faith is at work, corruption ultimately bows. If corruption does not bow, it is because you refuse to stay on the path of persistence. This parable tells us corruption can never withstand persistent faith. So stand on your rights. Show that you aren't ready to give up until you get what's due to you. No one can fault you for that, not even a corrupt judge. Not even a corrupt judge. Things would have been different if this woman was asking for something that she was not entitled to. Things would have been different if it is this woman who was on the side of contravention of the law. That's why we emphasize the importance of playing by the rules. What powers persistence? Faith. What keeps a person going in the face of obstacles like this one? Faith. How do you persist when the odds are this daunting? Contending with strong adversaries that you need to bind before you can get what you want from them. Contending with a judge who is trying to use the power of the system against you. How do you hang in there when power is in the hands of someone else? And this is one of the things that you learn also. The authority and power that the system confers on somebody is not as powerful as your faith in the system, because your faith in the system will rise above the authority and power that the operator, the agent of the system, has been given custody of. That's what we're seeing here. All right, faith in the system. And that persistence is powered by faith. You have to believe in the fact that in who you want to get something from, that they have been empowered to give you what you want, to handle that situation for you. And they have sufficient power to respond to you. So you have no reason to turn back until you get what you want. If you do, you deprived yourself, not the system. All right? You can't persist when faith is not there. And notice that's what Jesus said in the end. He said, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? What he was saying is that the system, God would have responded to what you and I wanted, what you and I are asking for, speedily, if only we would hang in there. If only what? We will hang in there. He said, but the problem is that God wants to do it, but he's looking for that faith. He's looking for that passport with a visa inside, and he can't find it. Faith is what he's looking for. He said, will he find faith on the earth? So as many of us talk about faith, as we discuss this faith subject, the truth is that the faith does not exist in the lives of many. We don't have the requisite faith to get the things we want. It's not God that is not giving us. It's not our bosses that is not obliging us. It's our own lack of faith that will match what we want. Different things we want requires, different levels of persistence. You want to reap a harvest of pepper? It takes a number of days. You have to keep going to the farm, keep going to the farm. It is plantain you want, it takes a whole year. You have to keep going to the farm, keep going to the farm, keep going to the farm, and doing the needful. And watching over it and cultivating and dressing and cutting, digging around and fertilizing. Said, the problem, I am willing to do this thing, but I need faith to move me, to license me, to intervene. I need someone to believe that what they're asking for, I can provide it. And to show me that they are desperate enough. And that reminds me of another book that I wrote with that caption. It's based on this scripture. The title of that book is Desperate. It's desperate. I've asked you to remind me a couple of things. I hope you are noting it. If you don't, then that will be your loss. Desperate. And the point that every book that I write is based on one scripture. I get the inspiration from one scripture, and by the Spirit of God, is expanded, and that's what I focus on. And so what I was dealing with in that book, Desperate, is on Amazon as well, is that there are certain things you want to get from God. You must show that you truly want them. You must show that that they represent truly a need. If something is a real need, the way you will go after it is different from something that if I have it, okay, if I don't have it, it's okay. And some of the times, the problem is that we have plan B. That, okay, if we don't get it, if somebody doesn't do this, then we go and look for something else. Most cases, you will not get it. If it's from God, even if it's from man, think about it. If somebody approaches you as a person, even if it's your children, and they approach you with this mentality or this attitude that, well, if you do it, fine, but if you fail to do it, okay, they have a way of getting it. The likelihood is that you will not do it. You want them, let them go and exercise, go and use that plan. Why? Because they don't trust you enough. Why? Because they think that they can get it in spite of you. It's the same way that God reacts. You have other sources through which you can get it. Somebody else can give you a child. Please, go and explore your opportunity there. And whatever you see there, you face. And if you are disappointed there and you come back, then you would have learned your lesson. Like the prodigal son. This woman had no plan B. When you have persistent faith, you are not looking to solve the problem through any other means. It's only through that means. You are banking on that action to deliver what you want. No plan B, no alternative. Remember what Esther did. If I perish, I perish. That is the kind of faith that we're talking about. That is the kind of thing that whatever the consequences, let it be. But I am not asking for what is not due to me, and the system has to give me what is due to me. If I perish, I perish. If anything comes, if they want to sack me, let them sack me. But I know they can't sack me because what I'm asking for is my entitlement. It's due to me. I can justify it. The quality of my work, my experience, my relationships, you understand? My leadership, I can justify it. When your cause is just and you trust in the system, you can't return empty-handed. I like that quote. When your cause is just and you trust in the system, you can't return empty-handed. I'm reminded of what Jehoshaphat did when he faced opposition, adversaries, a conspiracy. There is no more powerful adversary than a conspiracy. You can't get a more powerful adversary than a conspiracy. The coming together of forces against one person. God help you. Jehoshaphat asked his people, ran to the temple, stayed before God. And what did they do? And he made a demand on God that he had to, it was like running to the judge. Avenge me, these adversaries. He said, we don't have power to deal with these three nations. Our eyes are on you. You are the only one we are depending on. We are not looking to anybody. So he went to the right person, to the right institution. The only person who could, and he expressed faith in that person. And guess what he did? He marshaled his point. He provided 3 solid justifications for coming to make that demand. And I did a research on each of the 3. He reminded God that at this point, this is what you said. At this point, this is what you said. At this point, this is what you said. He said, now, are you going to watch these people oppress us, clean us out. When you have said these three things, so all we're asking is that you uphold your word. And they stayed there. They weren't going anywhere. It wasn't about, we're going to be here until you answer us, until we hear from you, until you tell us exactly what you're going to do. And then he answered. And he said, okay, you have made your point. This battle is not yours. It's my own. It's my own. Because what is at stake now is my integrity that is at stake. There's still a book I'm supposed to write. And I have the title, I have it all laid out, but I haven't written it. How to make your battle the Lord's battle. Because once you succeed to make your battle the battle of the Lord, that's it. You can never lose. That's what Jehoshaphat did. He said, this is not our battle. We can handle this. He said, but we are depending on you. God said it's true. Based on what you have laid out, the battle is mine. It's not you. You won't even need to fight. You just watch and see me do my thing. And see me do my thing. Notice, if you know that story very well, we always misrepresent an aspect of it. God never asked them to do anything. God didn't ask them to do anything. He said, the battle is mine, it's not yours. God did not ask them to sing praises to him. So some people like to make it look as if it's the praises they sang. No, it's not the praises they sang. It had nothing to do with it. Jehoshaphat said that because God had taken over the battle. What will they do? God only told them, I'm going to direct you. You follow this way because you need to collect the spoils. You need to collect the spoils. So I will tell you what to do. Now, instead of just walking, and going, he said, okay, let appoint singers. Let's be praising the God who is going to move on our behalf. If they didn't praise God, would still have done what he needed to do. Why? Because they had provided justification. It's not the praise. It is the 3 points. It's because that's not our focus. That's why I'm not going into it. I would marshal the 3. I will tell you where they are exactly and why they were, it was within their place to hold God responsible because God made certain promises in the past, including the fact that whenever they face that kind of challenge, they should come to the place of prayer. They should come to a specific place. They should look in a specific direction, and that if they will cry to him along on that basis, that he would hear. That was the prayer of Solomon, in 1 Kings 3 or 2 Kings 3 or so, and God said to Solomon, I have heard that prayer. So when Jehoshaphat, who is a descendant of Solomon, faced that situation, it was one of the things that he used. That's why he ran to the temple and faced the particular, direction and leveraged the prayer of Solomon and the answer that God confirmed, which is written in the Bible. So it's important to get some of those things clear. So you don't think that until you sing praises, that's when God will move. No, this woman didn't sing praise to anybody here. And God said, I'm not looking for praise. I'm looking for faith. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Not praise. Will he find faith? That's what moves God. Faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. So you can even praise without faith. You can praise without faith. The just shall live by his faith. Everything the just does must be by faith. Underlining, underpinning it must be faith. You do it in faith. If faith is not the platform, forget it. God will not have any respect for it. And man also won't have respect for it. Because when you believe in somebody, when you show that you believe in somebody, is a powerful motivation to get the person to act on your behalf, to go to any length on your behalf. Try it. Show that you believe in somebody. They want to ensure that as long as it's within their power, they will reward you for that faith. They will reward you for that faith. In anything you do, when you encounter people who believe in you, you go the extra mile. Because you want to prove that your faith is not misplaced. It's not misplaced. All right? And that's the kind of faith that has no respect for time. Some of the problems that some of us has, we want something now. We want it when we want it. You cannot have oppressors. You can't have a judge that is an obstacle and you're expecting that things will happen so fast. You have to deal with that. You have to deal with that. It takes time to deal with that. And some of them, you have to ask them, they must know that you are not going to take no for an answer. It takes time. But we don't want to do all of that. We want everything to fall on our lap ASAP. And that's not the way of the kingdom. The way of the kingdom is not speed. The way of the kingdom is respect for process. And process takes time. Because it is precept upon precept, line upon line. It takes time. We like to quote some of those things. We forget that there is an element of it that is time. So it won't happen just like, 2 days, 3 days. No. You always ought to pray and not lose hope. That statement implies that you may have to do it for long. You may have to stay in the place of prayer for long. The fact that time is elapsing does not mean you won't get it. If anything, it is part of the ways to prove that you are not willing or ready to take no for an answer. And so when you recognize this time dimension, it also is a source of empowerment. Because then you are ready and you have the stamina to see the thing through. With faith and patience, they obtained the promise. With faith and patience, we obtain the promise. So look at this. Jesus said, will the Son of Man find faith on the earth? Will a leader find faith on the earth? Will somebody who is in a position to help you find faith in you? Faith, do you believe in him? In his ability to give you what you want? So the oppressor is not really the problem. The thief is not really the problem. The judge is really not the problem. The corruption of the judge is really not the problem. The law is not the problem. The institution is really not the problem. The system is not the problem. It's not as if it's rigid. I mean, the system is rigid. It's well structured. It is set up in a way to give you what you want. Accessing the system isn't the problem. The woman was able to get to the judge. She was able to get to the judge. She found her way to the presence of the judge. All right? So it's not the cost of accessing the system that is a problem either. Being a widow is not the problem. Yes, you are a widow. Yes, you are vulnerable. Yes, you appear weak. But that's not the problem. That should not be the reason why any adversary should take advantage of you. That should not be the reason why any judge should look down on you. It's not about your identity. When it comes to getting what you want, that's not the problem. The problem is, are you knowledgeable enough to know the key to activate, to put what you want in your hands? The solution is not in all of this. That's the truth. The stance of the widow decides her outcome. She doesn't need to be a widow to ask for what is hers. She could be married and she will still have oppressors. She could be married and she will still have adversaries. She could be married, the judge will still have no respect for her. So the fact that she's a widow is not the issue. Faith in her heart is the solution. And if the lack of faith is the problem, not any of these issues. Jesus didn't say, will he find a righteous judge? So a righteous judge is not necessary for you to get what you want. He didn't say, will he find a married man? A married woman is not the reason. Will he find the right system in place? That's not the reason. He said, will he find faith? Will he find what faith? Will he find faith? That's the key. Will he find somebody who has the key, persistent faith that gets these kinds of matters resolved? Will he find faith? Your boss is not responding, is not moving on your behalf. Will he find faith in your heart? Believing in him, not even in God. Will he find faith? Because some of us will say, especially believers, I believe in God. No, you can't believe in God alone and not believe in the person who will do it. Believe the Lord your God. Believe also his prophet. That's what, that's what Jehoshaphat told them. It's very instructive that Jehoshaphat had to say that. Why? Because he knew the key, that it is faith that moves God. That's why when he turned to his people, after God had answered them, he told them, believe in the Lord your God. Says, so shall you be, established. But you want to prosper? Believe also his prophet. Believe also his prophet. There is a God to believe. There is a man also to believe, depending on the situation in which you are. You don't want to believe in your boss. You want to believe in God alone. And God will override your boss, except your boss is a wicked, person. But at times, your boss is not a wicked person. You are the one who has not demonstrated that you truly want what you're asking for. I think it's in this class that I told you, a former MD of mine many years ago at UBA who told me, the right of way is not given, it is taken. What was he telling me? If you are desperate enough for what you are talking to me about, you will get it. You'll get it. So he was telling me what I came to report to him is in my hands. It's not even in his own hands. I mean, what a humbling statement. I thought that was all he had to say to me. And that was enough to resolve the issue that I had. Counsel. Powerful counsel. Powerful counsel. We operate at times in ignorance. And we call it faith. Because we disregard the fact that men are agents of God and God walks through them. There is a way to treat your boss. If you don't treat your boss in that manner, if you don't recognize your boss for who he is, and that's how he operates, God will never override your boss. You have to learn these things so that you can use them. Your refusal to learn them is embracing ignorance and wanting to put your responsibility on God's shoulders. There's what you are expected to do. That's why this kind of program is important. So that when you contact this wisdom, you know what to ask from God and what to take responsibility for. It said, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar. Give unto God what is God. It's not everything that God wants to do. It's not everything that God will move on your behalf. There are things you need to take responsibility for and do because you have been empowered to do. They are a function of wisdom. There are some things that doesn't require prayer. And if prayer is, if you run to prayer because of lack of knowledge, meaning what you ought to have applied knowledge and wisdom to resolve, and you are going to God to ask for it, you better make sure that what you're asking God is the knowledge and the wisdom, not that you're asking him to intervene directly. Because if you ask him to intervene directly, you are passing on your responsibility to him. But if you are telling him to teach you or to find a way of you getting to know what you need to do, then that's fine. The Bible talks about Jesus. He said, for he himself knew what he would do. For he himself knew what he would do. For he himself knew what he would do. All right, so we round up now. And so what are the incremental insights? Everyone faces challenges, even widows. We must seek resolution, fight for our right. We must seek redress lawfully as well. Trust the system, not the persons running it. Refuse to accept no from the system. Insist on fairness and demand it from the system. Your faith will whip the system into line always. And corruption can be overcome by persistent faith. So you are not powerless. You are not powerless. You are not powerless. And what are today's discoveries? Life wants to give you what you desire, but adversaries emerge to oppress. You can count on the system to protect you, even if it's corrupted by people running it. Leverage the mystery of faith in the system, expressed in your persistence to win. And the application areas, the world is run based on systems and people can undermine its workings. But through the use of persistent faith, we can force the system to yield to our legitimate demands. Faith will triumph over corruption all the time if you will be persistent in the use of it. And my final quote, if you can engage persistent faith, you cannot be oppressed successfully, even if the system is corrupt. Faith beats corruption always, only that it's scarce to find. If you engage persistent faith, you cannot be oppressed successfully, even if the system is corrupt. Faith beats corruption every time, always. Only that it is scarce to find. It is scarce to find. Persistent faith is scarce to find. So that's it for today. And thank you very much for listening.